So, welcome back to episode numero 5 of the UGQ podcast. Today we have one of my favorite people in the entire southern Michigan.
Wow. That whole area? Wow.
No, genuinely, literally one of my favorite human beings of all time.
Very good.
The one person that you should know that you've never heard of. And if you have heard of him, then you know all about this guy. The one and only Chris Hillier, a.k.a. Wolverine. Thanks for coming, man.
I'm glad to be here, Chad. Thank you really for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Take it away. Cheers for the next hour.
I got a lot to say about long-distance hiking and about the trails I've done and the trails I want to do. So,
You are one of the craziest people I know in the best way possible. So we met, probably 4, 5, 6 years ago?
2018.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
so about 6 years ago.
Yep.
And you were one of the very few people that had the opportunity to actually come into our shop and be a part of the process of making your own top quilt.
Yeah, I had a big hike planned to hike the Baja Peninsula in Mexico, the whole thing, from San Diego to Cabo San Lucas. And it was a huge undertaking, and I needed special gear. I needed a really, ultralight, I know you love that word,
love it.
quilt. And I reached out to, at the time, Paul and Missy McWalters and talked with them. And yeah, you guys had me in your shop and built me this really cool quilt that I used for thousands of miles. Not only that hike, but several hikes after that.
And that was a 50 degree, right?
Yeah. But Mexico is tricky because in the beginning, there's some elevation, and I didn't know this, but it actually snows in Mexico. I had a couple days of snow, so I needed something warm enough for that part.
Right.
But for the rest of it, was going to be boiling hot, so I wanted next to nothing.
Right.
And the quilt you guys
You
made
wanted
for
it to
me,
be just light enough.
I wanted just light enough, and it was a really solid piece of gear, and I for thousands of miles I used that thing, and eventually it tore and I ripped it and all that stuff.
How many miles would you say total you put on that particular
I think 4,000. I think I did 4,000 miles on with that quilt.
I think I flew 4,000 miles with a quilt once.
Yeah. And the only remnant of it, I should have worn. I have a hoodie where I clipped out the label from it, the Underground Quilt old school label.
Oh yeah, I remember you showed me that.
Yeah, and I had a hoodie, and I just sewed it over the actual logo of the hoodie because I don't know that company and don't care about them.
I could tell that you sewed it.
Well, thank you. I'm not as good as Tom Baker say, but yeah, I sewed it with dental floss.
Yeah,
that's what I
classic.
use. Yeah, and I wear that hoodie all the time, and people ask about the logo and what is that? And, it's cool because it's the old school.
So you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been the first on a few different trails, correct?
I have.
So the one I know about for sure was the Baja Divide, which was the trail in Mexico.
Right.
Please tell us about that, because that was when you started telling me about this trip and the plans for it and all the work that had to go into planning this trip. All I could think was, yeah, this guy has definitely lost it. He's going through a midlife crisis. I don't understand where he is at, but one of the coolest trips I've ever heard of anybody doing, and again, one of the craziest. So please inform our guests on what we're talking about, because it was insane.
Yeah, it's a trail I was happy to do, the first to do it on foot, and I'll never do it again. The Baja Divide Trail is a mountain bike trail, and I'd heard of it from some friends of mine, Neon and On a Move, shout out to them, who rode it on their bikes. They're crazy adventures. I mean, they're out most of the year, every year. And I was looking at their pictures and seeing the blog posts, and since they're friends of mine, I reached out and said, could this trail be done on foot? And Neon was like,
no.
He should have said no. He was like, probably, it could be. And I was like, sweet. And I took that ball and ran with it. And I told,
if you're Forrest Gump, maybe, or Chris.
I told everybody, I'm doing this Baja Divide Trail. I'm going to be the first one to do it on foot. And I, talked a lot about it before I really looked into the details of it. So I got back in touch with Neon, and I was like, what's the water situation on this trail? Like, what's the longest, waterless stretch? And he was like, there's no water on the whole trail. What do you mean the longest? And I was like,
all of it.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
The whole 1,374 miles. There's no natural water there. And I was like, well, that's going to be an issue. And I said, literally though, from what point to what point is the longest waterless stretch? And he looked it out and he said 126 miles. And I was like, I can't, I need 70 gallons of water to make that.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And I'm really in a situation here. So I was trying to figure out a way. Could I cache water? I don't know anyone in Mexico. Could I cache water there? Could I, some other way to do it? And I came up with the idea, or someone gave me the idea of this cart that you push. And it's aluminum frame. It's kind of it's almost like a
super ultra lightweight.
Well, it's made for hunters when they, take a deer to get the carcass out of the woods. And so it's like a mountain bike tire, sort of a wheelbarrow design, like a mountain bike tire and a narrow aluminum frame and then handlebars. And I figured I could strap lots of gear and water to it and just push it. And I got in touch with the company and ended up buying one of their products and had it sent to California. So now I'm in a situation where all systems are go. I'm doing this trail. I'm going to California. I've never touched this cart thing. It has to be put together. And I really wound up thinking to myself, you probably bit off more than you can chew. You got funding and gear from sponsors. You told everyone you were doing this, and now it's time to...
You're in it. You got to go.
Yep. So I stayed with my nieces in Southern California, got hold of this cart thing, put it together. I was like, all right, this could work. And I remember the first morning, just leaving the hotel room, I had all this gear and stuff strapped to it, and just trying to get out of the door of the hotel, it fell over and all the gear went. And I was like,
this is how this next 1,300 miles
I'm not
is
sure. This is actually, but I wound up pushing it through the streets of San Diego and, getting some looks. I still had a backpack because I had, a ton of gear. And that cart did what it was supposed to do. It got me through the hike. I made it, but I really hated pushing it. It changed the way I hike. I had to carry lots of extra stuff like a lock to lock it up if I went into a store or restaurant or whatever. I had to carry supplies to fix the flat, a spare inner tube, all that.
Now, I remember you telling me about this. What was it like pushing it through the sand?
Man, so one of the options they offered on this cart was a, like a fat tire. You see these fat tire mountain bikes, and it was a $250 option. So I passed on it, but I should have spent the money because...
You should have just called me because I'd have been like, yeah, it's crazy enough that you're going out there. You need all the help you can get.
The Baja Peninsula is all like this sugar sand, really fine sugar sand. And as I'm pushing this cart through it, the front wheel would catch it and tumble over. It seemed like it was happening every mile, every half mile.
Now, was there any point on the... Because I'm assuming you had to do quite a bit of rationing when it came to your water. Was there any point where you just wanted to just dump it all over yourself and go for it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's essentially like fuel for a car. When I was in the halfway across that 126-mile stretch, I remember thinking to myself, if I, God forbid, this cart breaks or I don't ration my water properly or whatever, I'm not gonna, make it to the end. You really have to, no matter how thirsty you are, you have to try to keep it, for me, down to about 1 liter every 5 minutes or every 5 miles. Pardon me. So, I made it somehow through that hike. I, having spent hundreds of dollars on that cart, I sold it for the equivalent, I think, of about $25.
You just hated it. Like, I want this thing gone.
And when I didn't need it anymore, I got rid of that thing. I sold it on the streets and made it down the rest of the way to Cabo, and it wound up being a great hike. And I'm proud to be the first one.
Great, but you'll never do it again.
I'll never do it again. And the other thing about being the first to do a trail is it's only cool if other people do it. No one else has done that trail.
Are you recommending?
No. I don't think anyone should go try to walk through the deserts of Mexico.
By saying that, you're going to get a bunch of people like, I'm doing it now just because he said not to.
I had one guy who
because that's exactly what draws you to a trail. If somebody's like, no, don't do it, Chris, it's too crazy. You're like, I have to go now.
It kind of does. What you say, I can't? I did have one guy reach out to me a few months after I was done. He said, I'm going to do that Baja Divide Trail. And I said, all right, but, there's myriad challenges. I said, what's your plan? He said, well, I'm going to do a southbound Pacific Crest Trail. So I'm going to start in Canada, all the way down through Washington, Oregon, California, then do the whole Baja Divide Trail. And I was like, that's a pretty aggressive plan. Are you pretty experienced? You have a lot of... And he was like, well, no, but...
What is wrong with people? That's my biggest question is that I forgot what happened to, planes where you just fly places.
I mean, it might have worked, but he tried it. I think he changed his plan at the last minute. And he was going to go north. So he's going to start at Cabo San Lucas and try to go all the way up to Canada. And after a couple weeks, he called me and said, what he said is, there's no water out there. I said, I know. So he didn't make it. And I don't think anyone else has done it on foot since then. But like I said, it's only really cool to be the first to do something if a ton of people do it afterward.
Yeah.
So the 3 trails I've done, the Baja Divide Trail, the Great Lake to Lake Trail here in Michigan, which was from Lake Michigan across to Lake Huron, and the trail that is now called the Iron Bell Trail. But when I did it, it was just, proposed by the governor. It didn't have a name yet.
Right.
And so I was the first to hike that one. But,
and that one goes from
Belle Isle in Detroit to Ironwood,
Nice.
in the very western UP
Wow.
on the border with Wisconsin.
And that's how many miles?
924. The version that I did, I should say.
Did you see my eye twitch?
Because of 900 miles. No,
Yeah.
I should say they've changed it a lot since I hiked it. But I wound up after I finished that hike in Ironwood on stage with the then governor of Michigan, Governor Snyder. I don't know how, but he was up there and he was talking about the trail and the importance of trails and greenways in the state of Michigan. And he said, this young man is hiked all 624 miles of the trail that I proposed. And the only thing I could think was, it's 924, not 624.
I would have said it out loud.
300. I was
Be like, oh, you're missing 300 miles there,
Excuse
buddy.
me, Governor.
So I felt every single one of them.
Yeah, if you hiked 300 miles, you would notice. But yeah, it was really exciting. And yeah, I find myself in these situations at the state capitol or meeting governors and
UGQ headquarters.
here I am getting interviewed. And
Come on, this is the best one.
Oh, this is the height of all my accomplishments. But I need, I guess I want people to know, it really is just walking. You guys all walk. I saw you walk in here. So I'm not sure how I went up in these situations.
Listen,
but
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because it is not just walking. Listen, if I walk from one end to the mall to the other, I'm feeling it. You're talking 900,000 miles, 2,000. Like, that's not walking. That is.
I mean,
we're talking a whole nother level of humankind.
I think
that transcends understanding. I've never understood through hiking. I know people as they get older in life, like most people that are through hiking are people that are either really young or people that are kind of like going through their midlife crisis. Like, I'm going to leave my job and go spend 6 months on the trail.
Yeah.
I will not be that guy.
Well, a lot of people do. They
will not be.
I might make you that kind of guy. I think a lot of people do that. They graduate college or they went through a divorce, some big life happening, and they go and hike the Appalachian Trail and they enjoy it, and that's all they need. But then there's a small percentage of people like me that I was out there only a couple weeks, and I was like, they call it ruined. I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I don't care what changes I need to make in my life. I want to do this all the time.
You are quite literally the epitome of what you would call hiker trash.
Oh, yes.
And that
I'm proud of it.
You work literally just enough out of the year to be able to get back out on the trail.
To get back where I belong.
Yeah.
To. And and hiker trash, by the way, is a term of endearment. To say someone is hiker trash
within the community. For us looking down on you, it's not.
Yeah, I don't think any of you guys are allowed to use that term, but it really is.
Hey, we depend on hiker trash. We kind of run a company that.
And there are really just a few dozen of us that are out there every year, and I see a lot of the same faces. I run into people all the time on the big trails that do the same thing. They just work enough to get money to get back out on the trail, and that's what they do.
And part of that too is that you have some pretty amazing sponsors and companies that you work with. That why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I've been very fortunate to work with a number of companies over the years, but currently I work a lot with Far Out guides. They make maps, and it's an app for hiking, but it's geared toward hikers, and it's made by hikers, and I know this because I hiked with the people who founded the company. Yeah. And every trail I do, the first thing I do is see if there's a Far Out guide for it. And if there is, I know it's going to be way easier. I'll have way more information, and just way safer. The thing about that app is, even if you're in the middle of nowhere, even if you're in airplane mode, you can still see where you are in relation to the trail. And it just is a whole nother layer of safety.
Yeah, very helpful.
So, yeah, I'm glad for them. I've been working with Jay's Sporting Goods. They're here in Michigan, and Claire and Gaylord, really cool store. Yeah. And of course, Stormy Cromer makes outdoor.
Dude, my dad is obsessed with Stormy Cromer. Obsessed.
Yeah, it's just you see the iconic wool hat. I wear mine brimless, but most of them have a brim on there, and they make all kinds of outdoor wear, and just really nice people. They're out of Ironwood. All their products are made in Ironwood. And Gina Thorson and her crew up there, they do good work. I'm glad to be associated with them.
I've never owned any Stormy Cromer stuff, but I've seen enough of it on my dad growing up that
not just the hats. They do all kinds of outdoor wear, the jackets and the vests and the whole thing and everything. So people should go out there and check out stormycromer.com. Good company. And Underground Quilts has been a close association of mine
UGQ.
since UGQ Outdoor.
See, we're above ground now.
So, oh yeah,
I was going to rebrand us to AGQ.
above ground quilts.
That's harder to say though.
Yeah, you could, but yeah, it has. I've been, like I said, working with you guys since 2018. You've made 3 different quilts for me. Most recently, for my trip to Alaska, I did the Chilkoot Trail in Alaska.
Yeah.
And it was cold and rainy up there, but the quilt you guys made for me really saved me in a couple situations. You know, cold and wet, close to hypothermia. You know,
do tell. I'm sure they would be.
I might have bit off
ecstatic
more
to-
than I can chew on that one, on that trail as well. It was
You had sent me a video about this.
Yeah.
That it was.
Yeah, the Chilkoot
quite
Trail
intense.
is really cool. It's historically significant because the people used to. It was the main way to get from the coast to the inland of Alaska. There's only a few places where you can get inland, and this one was wildly popular. And then they had a massive avalanche, and like 70 people were killed, and it fell out of favor. And now it's like a popular historic trail, but it's closed. It was closed because they had a couple bridges washed out, and it was closed to the public. And you know, just the way I hike, I don't like to be with a lot of. I prefer to hike by myself, and I prefer to camp alone too. And I thought,
we know
the trail's closed. It's an ideal time to do it, as long as I just keep it on the down low and don't announce it on a podcast.
there's no hikers that do that. There's none that look for closed trails to go.
So yeah, I skipped the permits and all that, and went up to Skagway, Alaska, and hiked that trail, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, but it rained the whole time.
Yeah, which is the
freezing
worst.
cold, yeah, and but I had my trusty underground quilt, kept me warm the whole time. So glad for it. It was good. Next, me. There's that stare.
Yeah, I'm quite well known for that. The famous blank stare.
Good at it.
One of my biggest goals when I have somebody on the podcast is to see how uncomfortable I can make them.
Really?
At some
I can
point
feel my face turning
in the
red, so
yeah, no, it's super red.
So it's working.
But look at how good you look on camera. Come on,
Stunning.
you were born to be on camera.
Oh my God.
So the other big thing that we've talked about a lot over the years is if you had documented your trips that you've been on YouTube, dude, you would be literally the who's who of YouTube channels. I'm telling you, because the stories that you have told me, the trips. How about this? Just based on what we've talked about right now, we'll see how many votes we can get for Chris to start his own YouTube channel.
I'd be interested to see the results of that. Yeah.
I have 3 followers, so it'll probably be 3 votes.
Okay.
But
great.
if we get 3 out of 3 votes,
then I'll do it. Then I'll start working on that.
The other big thing is that you had told me over the years that you have always hesitated because of not feeling proficient in using a camera, and just how you're out there to hike and genuinely just like experience the trail.
Yeah.
And what I've always told you is that while that's amazing and great, and you definitely need to do that, you don't have to film every second.
Right.
There are a lot of people who can't get out on the trail, who like to live vicariously through other people and see their adventures and hear their stories and get to know their personalities. And you have the whole package. You have what people are looking for when it comes to personality, when it comes to adventures, when it comes to what you're doing with your life. It's so interesting and so cool. Me and Tom talk about you all the time because you're
very, very kind of you.
You're one of the people that we always look at and go, man, that is one of the most interesting in the best possible way people that I know, because what you live for. And I mean, you showed up to lunch today with a whole stack of maps.
I got places I want to hike, man.
To show us all. I mean, you literally just obsess about being on the trail, which
I hear about a trail, someone will mention a trail, and then I'll be like, oh, and maybe I look it up online. But at some point, I kind of do get obsessed with it, and I start researching it and buying maps for it, and it won't go away until I hike the trail. Yeah. So it's just...
That is the definition of an addiction.
It is a problem, and there's got to be a 12-step program for me, right? Isn't there a group out there?
I actually have one. That I do a 12-week course that you can pay me a lot of money for, and I'll help you overcome.
Do I have to introduce myself and say I'm Chris? I'm a long distance hiker, like shamefully?
Yeah, that should be a thing, because it is definitely a sickness.
It's a crazy lifestyle, but it's it's not easy because it's not common. And I always think about Scott Williams, who is a famous hiker, especially on the Pacific Crest Trail. You know, he's set fastest known times and just this amazing hiker. And he always said about his lifestyle, it's not glamorous. He said, I live out of my truck in between hikes, and I'm a tree feller in California.
Yeah.
You know, he cuts down trees. He's like, I only make enough money to get back out to doing, and he was really the first person I heard say that. And I was like, wow. But he kept reiterating, it's not glamorous. You know, you're not going to get rich. You're going to have to make some concessions in other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
But if you are, you know, interested, you can.
But you've embraced the idea that your life is more about experience than it is about making money or achieving any type of success or anything like that. Like, you truly are somebody that lives for the experience of life, and like, you've found what makes you happy, and that's what you're going all in for.
And I'm so fortunate to have found that. And my family and my coworkers, especially, shout out to Fairlane Furniture Restorers, will tell you I value experience far more than material possessions. I have few material possessions.
Except for your UGQ Bandit.
Except for my quilt and my fancy Solomon shoes and my Stormy Cromer hat.
There you go.
I guess I do value some material possessions. But
the ones that directly equate to you being on the trail.
Yes, that get me out there to doing what I love to do and to being where I want to be.
Yeah,
so.
And you've had some really amazing friends along the way that have supported you and helped you in more ways than one. Absolutely. One of which that I know you brought with you today,
including Sandy Lowe,
who brought you actually.
Yes, she did. In a car. I could have walked here, but
shout out to Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
She is an absolute gem.
She is great, and Sandy and the late Martha Rogers, who will be missed, have been with me since I first said, I think I want to try and hike the Appalachian Trail. Yeah. And they were, like, well, all right. And so from that very beginning, she's helping me with resupply boxes and planning and just, this past,
which is key to.
You have to have home. You have to have some sort of home support, some sort of a base, and they were always there for me for all my trails. So it's important to have people at home that can help you deal with an emergency or send you something that you desperately need or whatever. It's essential.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is that it's. Just like I was telling you over lunch, like with business, I can't do anything, like make any of this happen at the shop or anything without the support.
Yep.
Like nothing that we do is a one-man show.
Yep.
And I think, with what you're doing and the support that you have, like I'm genuinely shocked that you don't have a lot more recognition for what you've done for the sport, I'll call it, of through hiking. And you always are referencing people that and that like you idolize, but the reality is that if people knew who you were, you would probably have, I'm just telling you, being in this long enough, you would probably have the largest following out of any of them.
Again, that's flattering, but like you said, I think
it is super flattering. You're welcome.
I'll put you in my will for that. I don't have any stuff, but when I get some stuff and I die, you can have it.
I'll get my quilt back.
There you go. That's one thing. It can change the way you hike, I guess is what I'm afraid of, is spending so much time with the selfie stick or setting up the tripod, certainly editing. I don't know how to edit. And from people that have really popular channels, I think they spend a lot of time editing and working on their shots and all that.
We just hire people for that.
I just want to...
Listen, there are we'll talk more about this after this segment, but there are ways to do it very inexpensively to get the quality editing. But I definitely get what you're saying in terms of like taking away from the experience. But you know what? It's not about you all the time, Chris.
I'm a selfish bastard, aren't I? Also, the amazing...
I want to see your trips. You always tell me about them. I'm like, man, I wish I could have seen it. Like your Baja Divide trip, dude, if that would have been videoed, I'm telling you, it would have been incredible. Because hearing the stories, but then actually being able to like see what you're talking about, like the stretches and the struggles and all of that kind of stuff. Really, it's like when people are researching hikes nowadays, for the most part, they go to YouTube and they're looking at all the different content that's out there about this particular trail. Well, you were the first one to do it. And the only thing that we have now is your word, which if we don't know you, then why would we take your word for it?
It's interesting that you say about researching a trail, going to YouTube. I do that too, of course. As soon as I hear about a trail, I check it out. But I'm careful not to watch too much because I want it to be,
more organic. You want to
I don't want to take away my aha moments and, and see the stuff for the first time for myself. So I try not to watch too much, but enough to get information.
But you also do a lot of education where your trips are concerned. So you have a website that breaks down all your trips, but you also do a lot of talks regarding your trips and not just the ones that you've been on, but the ones that you plan to do. Is all of that information available on your website, like for like the circuit of talks and stuff that you do? And
no, I usually just do like a Facebook.
I was trying to give you a plug here, Chris, and ruined it.
These libraries, I'm always flattered when they libraries, outdoor groups, scouting groups and stuff come to me and say, "Will you do a presentation about long distance hiking?" And I'm always glad to, and I'm always flattered. But I usually just like do a Facebook post before, like the few days before, trying to promote it. But that really started with Library Lynn at the Carolyn Kennedy Library in Dearborn Heights, Michigan. Mm-hmm. I was checking out a book about hiking, and she was like, "Oh, you like to do hiking?" And at that point, I only done a couple trails, but I was really into it. And she said, "Would you be interested in coming and giving a presentation?" And I said, "Sure." And then it turns out these librarians all have this kind of network, and they all talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And she said he gave a great presentation.
The underground librarian network.
I think so. Yeah, it might be. They're all in cahoots. And she said this guy, Chris, gave her a good presentation, and I started getting invitations to other libraries. And, it's fun. I meet tons of cool people. It's a chance to talk about my adventures.
Let's be honest. You like to talk about your adventures.
You
like it.
If I can't be hiking, I'd at least like to talk about hiking, And
maybe what we need to do is we just need to get you started on taking a bunch of photos, mm-hmm. and then have you do like a nice slideshow where you can like talk about things. At least that's something to start.
Could do that. I'd be glad to do that.
But eventually we're gonna get you in this whole YouTube world.
All right,
we're gonna get you there. Yeah. Even if I have to send Tom out to record everything for you.
I've hiked with Tom before, and I'd be glad to hike with him again.
There you go.
Yeah. So, how about coming to the Washita Trail in Arkansas and Oklahoma?
He said he's in
September. Can Tom have September 15th to the end of October off?
Sure.
You don't sound
and
sincere. More. You don't sound sincere. But
you can have the rest of the year at that point, because
I've also been fortunate in that regard. Trying to finance these hikes, I've done a million different jobs over the years and jumped around to different jobs. But I found this company, at least for the past 4 years, they let me leave and come back to do these hikes, and I'm grateful to them.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. Never mind.
He was doing that stare again.
Wow. I was gonna say you're gonna have to tell them to get you a raise now that they're getting so much recognition on this very reputable podcast.
Fairlane Furniture Restorers several times. So
yeah, it's time that they start
being a sponsor,
dishing out for. If they only knew who you actually were.
Oh yeah.
I feel like they're like, oh yeah, that's Chris. He likes to hike, but like in the hiking community.
Yeah, it's weird that
you're like the guy that hikes that also works this job.
I say it usually like in town, Chris the furniture mover, basically is what I do. But on the trail, I'm Wolverine, the Triple Crown hiker. It is two dramatically sort of different lifestyles, and after all these years, they're becoming more and more disparate and separated.
I once hiked to Burger King. Does that count as a crown hiker?
I once heard a guy say, anyone who's ever run out of gas is a hiker. So, or someone, he was saying, anything that's your hobby, or anything that you do anyways, you can't call a hobby. Like some people are like, oh, my hobby is reading. Well, we all read. You have to read. And then he said, anyone who walks is a hiker. Anyone who's run out of gas is a hiker. And I was like, kind of true.
Unless you have AAA.
Well, then you're not even a hiker.
Just you suck.
Yep. You just are addicted to your car.
Honestly, there's been in my entire life, there's been I think maybe two maybe three times I've ran out of gas, and I never hiked anywhere. I just called my dad and was like, hey, bring me gas.
Come on, man. You should move about this earth as you evolve to on your own 2 feet.
Listen, that's what I have YouTube for, so I can watch other people do it.
We've been walking.
I get close enough. See, that's my new motto. Everything's just enough. Light enough, close enough, good enough.
Good enough. Yeah. I say those same things quite often.
See, so if I can get you recording your trips, then I don't have to go hike the Baja Divide Trail.
You can just watch. Yeah.
Not that I was going to anyways, because that's certainly not happening.
Sure it wasn't on your schedule to go?
No, I will rent a sailboat and float down the coast.
That'd be sweet.
While you hike the shore. But
you know what you should do? What everyone should do is ride it on a mountain bike as it was intended for. It would be a great ride.
Like an e-bike, like one with a motor.
We've got to escape this car and motor culture.
Listen, No, I can't keep using it as an excuse. It's not fair.
We've been walking for 1.6 million years. We evolved to walk forward. We have some
Okay,
of the
well
best.
then to that note, you better start doing it barefoot because we did it barefoot a lot longer than we did it with shoes. Your fancy Solomon shoes.
They are fancy.
Yeah.
And I love them.
So do it barefoot with a little loincloth and then come talk to me about.
No one wants to see that.
Then you can't bring that statistic up.
No one wants to see that, believe me. I did hike in a loincloth once.
I don't doubt it. I've had actual requests for down Speedos.
Oh my God.
Like,
Don't
you want to talk ultra light? Can you overstuff the front?
Do not, please do not make those. The summer equinox is hike naked day. It's June 21st, I think, every year, especially on the Appalachian Trail. People hike naked. I don't, but the one year
that's a sight that I don't want to see.
I was with a group and they were all gung ho, so I did a loincloth. I took a camp towel and kind of put it down the front, and that was awkward and then embarrassing. Don't hike naked by yourself.
That's for sure going to end in jail time.
Probably illegal. Illegal, but yeah, people do it every year. Hike naked day. They just go for it.
Yeah, so. That's not something I'm ever going to be a part of. But
I'm just saying, it's people are, if you want to.
People are interesting. That's for sure.
They're crazy, and especially this subset of long distance hikers are especially crazy.
Hear that? Long distance hikers, you're all crazy.
You are crazy, and I know this because they have their own language and their own heroes and their, this unconventional lifestyle. Yeah, we are all hiker trash weirdos.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So you, as a long distance hiker, have been, I assume, somebody who focuses a lot on being ultralight.
Yes.
So one of the discussions we were just having at lunch was me saying that I am trying to but not be so hyper focused on ultralight.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what your experience has been like as a long distance hiker, and kind of where you have put the emphasis on shaving weight out of your pack. Because for me, I have been always been a firm believer that the one area that you should not compromise is your insulation.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that is so crucial that so many people get wrong. And so what has your experience been like? How do you pack for a long distance hike? Where are you looking to shave weight? How are you planning to kind of pack your backpack? And before you answer that question, Tom, can you do me a huge favor and grab me another beer? Thanks, buddy.
Sure. Thanks. It's all about the weight. And from my very first trail, the first time I wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail, I was reading a forum, and this guy said the first piece of equipment you should buy is a scale. And I was like, oh, come on. I mean, it's not all about the ounces and grams, is it? And it can be. I was obsessed. Thanks, Tom.
Hey, that's Tom, by the way.
Tom Baker.
Tom, come stand right here on camera, right here in the middle.
Tom.
This is Tom. Tom is our... How would you describe yourself, Tom? Don't look at me like that.
Don't look at me.
Tom is one of our full-time sewers. He actually got a job for us by, I don't know if you know the story, but he got a job for us by showing up to our shop multiple times with donuts.
That's a foot in the door.
It went a long ways, trust me, because we're a donut group. But then he brought in a backpack that he had made. Because he really wanted to work for us for some reason. I don't understand why, but he wanted to. And so finally it just got to the point between the donuts and the backpack, I was like, Tom, just
might as well work here.
Just go sit on the machine.
I'll tell you how I met Tom was...
might as well put you to work.
On the trail. I was hiking in Michigan, and Tom and you're hiking with Eric at that point. Yep. And the first thing hikers talk about is what gear they're carrying. And I was like, check out my cool underground quilt. And he said, yeah, I got one too, and I work for them.
Ooh,
and I was like,
burn.
whoa, wow. And we wound up hiking together for a couple days, and just I got to ask him all about the company, and I was impressed.
You better only said good stuff, Tom.
He said the training was long. He said there was oversight on every step of the process, and I was really impressed. I was like, man,
I still get after Tom to this day.
I
don't relent.
He's got to be your most experienced guy, so
he's
all right. Then
that's true.
Yeah. And he makes...
Get out of here, Tom.
He makes cool gear. Yeah, he makes good stuff. Thanks for the beer.
Also, quick shout out. Tom is the inventor of the poop hammock.
I have one.
AKA the Porta Privy.
Yes.
Tom, what's your website?
Portaprivy.com.
portaprivy.com. Check it out. And if they start selling, guess what? We're going to bring in-house. Tom, I will buy your company, and you will be making them here.
I have one.
If they sell after this.
Yeah.
They're actually quite popular. In fact,
It's a great idea.
Every time we go to events and stuff, people have heard about it. I'm like, no way. How have you? Because Tom's been asking me to make them for years. I'm like, Tom, I'm not putting those on my website. I'm not putting a poop hammock on my website. But it's growing. I told him, if it grows in popularity and there's a market for it, I will entertain it. So you let us know in the comments if a poop hammock is something. It's literally a hammock that has a giant hole in it, so you can't miss, because you don't want to miss in that thing.
Instead of hanging your butt over a log or however your current technique is, this thing is very comfortable.
Oh, I just dig a hole in the ground and I just lay down flat. Just lay there for a while. And whatever happens. You just
that can work. But getting back to weight, I've been obsessed with weight.
Spilled so much on myself.
Oh man,
disregard.
Keep it clean, man.
Dude, all right, it's fine. I suck. I try
to be ultralight. I aspire to be ultralight, but I'm not the guy with the 8-pound base pack weight.
That's how much my backpack weighs by itself.
Right, without all the stuff in it. So I've never been really ultralight. I tend to average around like 15 to 18 pounds around there, more if it's cold out or whatever. But the focus has certainly been, over the past 10 years for sure, ultralight. You got to shave ounces. Ounces are pounds and pounds are pain. You've got to lose the weight. You are the first person that I've heard at lunch today say, it's important to be lightweight, but pick your areas to shave the ounces from. Maybe it's not all ultralight. And
I've had too many stories of people telling me that it wasn't worth it when they compromised their insulation.
Yeah.
Because it's a very easy way to shave weight. You can look at, hey, I'm going to be going out on this long hike, and the coldest it's supposed to get is 30 degrees, so I'm going to go with a 40 degree, overstuff, blah blah blah.
And just wear all my clothes.
And I'm telling you, it's the overwhelming majority regrets it time and time and time again. And I have yet to have, in all of our years of business, somebody come to me and say, hey, the extra 4 or 5 ounces that I got wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And it's never come up. And why the emphasis is so heavy on shaving weight out of this area. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like, yes, going from a sleeping bag to a quilt, that's a massive savings.
Yes.
But there's only so much you can cut. And then there comes to a point to where you cut it to a fault. And I think that's where I've kind of stuck my heels in the ground and said, look, it's light enough.
Yeah.
Like, you get to a point to where you've cut too much weight out of this, and now you're going to compromise your sleep.
Right.
You're going to compromise your warmth. You're going to compromise your entire hike because you're trying to save a few ounces.
Right.
And do it where you can, but don't do it to a fault.
The fact is, if you don't sleep well, you don't hike. I've had miserable nights just lying there shivering the whole night, and the next day I couldn't make the miles. I was miserable, and that's sleep deprivation is.
Let's be real though.
Hurdle.
I can be warm all night and still not do the big miles.
I need a good night's sleep.
Unless there's a train nearby.
Yeah, that can bother you.
I'll see you guys on the other side of the mountain.
No.
I'm gonna go get a hot meal on the train.
One of the things I love most about being out on the trail is I sleep like a rock every night. I mean, solid 8-10 hours, every single night, and it feels great.
I think you're one of the only persons I've ever heard say that.
Oh man, if I'm off.
What's your go-to sleeping pad?
Just a Thermarest Fold. Yeah, I've gone through a dozen of them, and they wear out after a while, but they're light and they're versatile. You can use it as a sitting pad. Spread it out if you're making lunch.
You are an alien.
I'm unconventional, but I'm concerned with weight too. But like you said, I want to lose it in the right spots. Too many people are out there cutting the handle off their toothbrush and cutting the extra straps off their pack, but they're carrying a camp chair, and it's like, what's your, look at the whole thing.
And I get it because, there's always been that saying going around like hike your own hike, like, mm-hmm. I cut weight here so that I can bring this. Yep. And I get it. And I guess my obsession has turned to not doing it in the areas that are most important.
Yeah.
And it's like, sure, you can take, a 20-degree sleeping bag, mummy bag, that weighs almost 3 or 4 pounds, and you can get an equivalent 20-degree quilt, and you just shave 2 pounds.
Right.
But then for most people, it's not enough. They're like, well, maybe I can do it more. Maybe I can get one that's sized just enough for me, and it's just long enough, and it's, you know what I mean? And then it turns into, now you have spent $300-400 on something that you strip down too far.
Yep. And it's not functional.
And then it turns into dead weight, because now it's something that you probably don't even want to bring in the future, because you decided that I wanted to. And there's other ways to do it, like we talked about. Like, you can get, instead of getting a 20 denier outer shell, get a 10 denier.
Yeah.
You know, and shave 2-3 ounces out of the entire quilt right there, just by choosing a different type of fabric.
Right.
That's why we also offer different types of down, so that you can shave that weight without compromising the overall insulation and the warmth that you get in that particular product.
Right.
Which, again, to me is why I've adopted the new motto. It's light enough.
Light enough.
Shut up. It's light enough. You've gone too far.
Is that what the ad is going to say? Shut up. It's light enough.
Yes.
Okay. I just think it's important to just take each piece of gear that you're going to bring with you and look at it and think to yourself, do I need to bring this? Because some people tell you, you know, long distance hiking is all about knowing what not to bring.
Yeah.
So look at it and think to yourself, you know, do I need this? And people who know me know I'm careful with that word. Do I need this? Mm-hmm. Does it have more than one function? You know, can it be used for multiple things? Otherwise, just don't bring it.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to do. But so yeah, if you can not bring a couple things, then you can spend more weight where it's necessary, like on insulation, so you can sleep well.
Right.
Or, you know, a more substantial, more durable pack instead of something that's super, super light, but the minute you brush against a tree, it just gets torn.
Or another big one is your tent. You know, the tents keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yep.
And as a result, the condensation increases and the saturation on your products increases and your overall experience. I mean, as somebody who's 6'2", sleeping in some of those tents that are, I mean, they're right there. Your head's touching the ceiling, your feet's touching the bottom end, and it's like, you know, how much are you taking away from your experience? And again, there is a different breed of humans out there, such as yourself, where like, listen, I'll sleep with a rock. I don't really care, because I just want to be on the trail.
Yeah.
But I still think that the majority of people out there are looking for the experience. Like, what draws us to the great outdoors? It's for the experience. It's to be able to enjoy it.
Right.
And I feel like we have spent too much time and emphasis on how we can make it the lightest possible so we can just hike endless miles.
Right.
So for you, somebody that's a long distance hiker, how much do you, when you're on the trail, emphasize like taking in the scenery and the overall experience, and how much are you just concerned about cranking out miles?
Yeah, it's a balance, you know, of both. I probably tip more toward the, you know, easily distracted, oh my God, I'm going to look at that bird for 20 minutes when I probably should be trying to make the miles.
Look at a bird for a whole 20 minutes?
Easily.
What kind of bird are you looking at?
Well, all birds. I'm really strangely into birds. But, yeah, you know, I wish my focus
That's a good gift idea.
was anything.
I'm going to get you a really nice sweater with lots of birds on them.
I don't want material possessions. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to get it for you regardless.
Take me on a bird watching expedition. You and I. That'll be a gift.
You just only want me for my resources.
I want to go look at bald eagles on Lake Erie with you. Yeah, I don't want material
Tom.
possessions. Tom, you're invited too. Sandy, come along.
And well, Sandy is just automatically assumed.
Yes.
She's coming no matter what.
You got to be there. Yeah, I just
can't pay you. I'd have to pay him to come. So.
Yeah, like I said, I've focused this whole time on aspiring to be ultralight, working toward ultralight, and you're the first person I've met who said, how about just light enough to be comfortable and to be light.
Yeah,
and fun.
What do you think about that?
It's a gamble, because
I love to gamble.
The rest of the industry is.
Although I've literally never gambled, but I love to gamble when it comes to business.
This is a big gamble.
Like doing the podcast with Adam. That was a gamble.
Yes.
But it was so much fun, and I didn't care.
Inviting your main competitor to be on a podcast with you, it was awesome.
And now me and him are like this.
That's kind of cool.
We're texting all the time now, and we're actually going on a trip together now.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to use his stuff, and he's going to use mine. One of us is going to be significantly more comfortable than the other. I'll leave it up to you to decide.
No, I thought that was a really cool idea. But, yeah, like I said, I've aspired to be ultralight, but maybe I just need to be light enough. I can work on that. There's that uncomfortable stare. I can feel my face turning red.
But the reality is that you say it's a gamble. To me, it's one of those things where it's what we've always done. It's just getting more education out there as to why too much is too much, why you cut too much, and why that's going to affect your overall experience. Now, if your end goal exclusively is miles, and I don't care about comfortability, I don't care about good night's sleep.
Right. Yeah, like if you're doing a fastest no
take
time.
a NASA blanket. You don't even need a quilt, like at that point.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're going to spend the money on a quilt and you're going to get it to the point to where the whole idea is for it to keep you warm at a given temperature rating.
Yeah.
There's certain ways to build it that is light enough for what you are trying to achieve. Right. The second that you go beyond that light enough is where it turns into, now I'm compromising my sleep, I'm compromising my warmth potentially, which then in turn, as you described, affects how I perform the next day.
Yeah.
And if your primary goal is big miles, how important is your sleep?
Yeah. You've got to eat right and you've got to sleep, or you're not going to be able to do the miles. You know, I like to think I average between 18 and 22 miles a day, depending on the trail and the topography and all that. But that doesn't happen if I don't get a good night's sleep and if I don't have quality food to eat.
So have you ever been in a scenario where you shaved too much out of your insulation and you regretted it? No, because you always been using UGQ.
Other than, I was thinking about, I was heading out to a hike with some friends, and we stayed at this, one of my friends, her dad's cabin. And I had my Z Fold, and he said, "Are you comfortable on the floor?" I said, "Oh, yeah, no problem." And my sleeping bag was out in the car, and he said, "I got some blankets," and I was like, "That'd be fine. I'll be fine with that." And I was not fine. The floor was freezing cold. I was laying there with these blankets, and I was miserable, and I didn't sleep at all. And the next day, we had this big hike planned, and I wasn't very much fun, I'm afraid, because I was sleep deprived from being too cold at night. Yeah, it's worth it to spend the weight to be comfortable at night.
Yeah, and that's my whole point with the choosing to not emphasize ultralight. Again, from a brand perspective, it's also been difficult because we have always overstuffed our products. We've done very conservative comfort rating, and along with that comes, hey, your 20 degree is so much heavier than so-and-so's 20 degree. And a lot of people automatically assume that that's a bad thing, and I'm trying to break that stigma and that stereotype that says like, hey, like you see all these top 20 or top backpacking lists of 2023 and 2024, whatever. And we're constantly put in there as, either like the best budget or blah, blah, blah. But you always see in there that we're heavy, the cons side of it, that we're heavier.
Yeah.
And then they put all the statistics like so-and-so's 20 degree is this way and ours is this way. And it's usually like 2, 3, 4 ounces heavier.
Right.
And what people don't understand is that with our product, you can strip it down to be competitive with those lists.
Right.
But the average person that gets on our website doesn't do that because they see the value in the comfort more so than spending more to get less.
Right.
Which still baffles me that we spend more money to get less.
I know.
In general.
It's
and
crazy.
So that's where I've kind of put the brakes on and said, well, wait a minute. Why are we compromising here when I can give you a product? Like if somebody gets a hold of me and it's like, hey, I want you to build something for me. I ask them a few set of questions and I tell them this is exactly what you want. This is going to give you the best possible experience out on the trail. Whether you're weekend warrior camping or you're through hiking, section hiking, it doesn't matter. This is what's going to give you the best experience. When that happens, I never have had somebody come back to me and say it wasn't worth the wait.
Yep.
Ever.
All 3 quilts that you guys have made for me, I've been fortunate to design them in conjunction with you. And especially the last one didn't take very long. I had a general idea of what I wanted, and I described it to you. You had some questions and steered me in a couple directions. You probably want this and not that. And they've all been super solid gear. I think it's worth it if you can afford to spend just 10 minutes with each of your customers. If you guys are getting an underground quilt, give a call or send an email and get their advice. They've definitely steered me in the right direction. So it's worth it to spend a few minutes with the people who are building your quilt.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many people I've said to on the phone, like, dude, this is light enough. Like even with how comfortable you're going to be, it's still only, 19 ounces. Yep. Like, come on, there's gotta be a compromise here somewhere because people always want to be warm, but they also want the lightest weight possible. And it's like, you can't have the best of both worlds. Yep. You can get it to a point but you have to ultimately decide what's most important. And my experience, both personally and doing this for as many years as that we've been doing this, is that what's most important to people in reality is their comfortability on trail. When they're sleeping, it's like Devin, who was on the podcast last week. He lives in Utah. The cold there is very different than the cold here in Michigan. One of the things that he noticed right away is like our 20 degree is more equivalent to like his 0 degree in Utah because of the humidity levels and all that. So, one of the things I told him was like, we comfort rate based on this humidity level, based on where we're at geologically. So imagine how much more comfortable you're going to be, in Utah, where the temp rating is very different, and that's the thing is like, and one of the things I asked him while we were out was like, was it worth having that extra weight last night? And it was like an overwhelming yes. Even though we didn't technically hike, he's now using that quilt moving forward because of the experience that you're getting. There's been plenty of times where he's gone out, it was cold, he had something that was supposedly rated for that temperature, and it was either too small or it was, just not properly rated, and the experience was shot. And as a result, you lose your faith and your confidence in that brand and that product, and you end up not using it moving forward because you lost the experience. So like everybody gets tunnel vision when they see all these companies competing for ultralight. I have had thousands of people tell me over the years, so-and-so, it was the lightest one on the market.
So that's what I went with, and I wound up not having a great experience.
Not worth it. 9 out of 10 times, it's not worth it.
It's interesting to me, too, because the other end of the spectrum from ultralight for me has always been durability. You can kind of either go toward ultralight or get something that's durable and it's going to last. And that's how I kind of look at things. Oh, it weighs this much, but it's going to last a lot longer. Or, wow, this is super light, but, is it really going to, because I'm pretty hard on gear. But you guys got that down pat. The durability is already there.
It's because we make it light enough.
I've never had a zipper fail. I've never had I've abused the hell out of your quilts, and they hang in there. So with the durability, not being an issue, go light, but just light enough.
There you go.
And I like it.
I'm going to have Mike, the video guy, put that on the screen. Yeah. Just light enough.
Yeah.
UGQ. Boom.
Yeah, do it. It's an interesting tack away from, like we said, 100% of hikers and industry are solely focused on ultralight, when maybe we shouldn't be. Maybe we should be trying to improve,
or just being careful with where we're telling people to shave weight.
Yeah,
because again, it's one of those things where somebody who's 6 foot, 185 pounds, looking at my sizing chart recommendation, it recommends a regular long, so a 55 wide, 78 long quilt. But I've noticed from my own experience that I do better in a 60 wide quilt, and the weight difference between a 55 and a 60 wide for a 20 degree, you're talking at most 2 ounces.
Right.
And it's like the extreme step up in comfortability and overall experience by going the extra 5 inches. Absolutely unbeatable. It's just absolutely not worth it to me to go, I shave 2 ounces, but I'm like, I can't move.
Long distance hiking, is ripe for innovation. There's people out there coming up with cool stuff, like you all the time. On the other hand, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Other people have done it. They know what they're doing. So somewhere in the middle between coming up with your own kind of cool stuff and relying on people and companies that have, know what they're doing and making the right stuff is the sweet spot. The first time I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2011, brand new rookie hiker, I read all the forums. I tried to, get as much information as I could, and my backpack was massive, and I had just had so much stuff. And after about a week or so, you get to this gear store, really popular on the Appalachian Trail, and I sent home, I think, nearly 12 pounds worth of stuff I thought I would need.
Yeah.
Stuff I was like, I'm going to need some rope. I better bring 50 feet of cotton rope in this.
Never know when you got to throw up a bushcraft shelter.
I don't know why I brought. I'm going to need a pair of jeans. I'll just put a pair of jeans in the back and bottom of my pack in case I go into town or whatever.
Yeah, go out dancing. You just never know.
All that stuff home, and since then I've, like I said, aspired to be ultralight, and I'm constantly, my gear is constantly evolving. I'm always welcome other people to, I'll blow up my pack and have them look at it, because if they have more experience than me, they might have a tip or a trick here.
But one piece of your gear is not evolving.
And that is my quilt.
There you go. Well, it's evolving in that.
It may evolve.
You're getting like the newer models.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally speaking, they're still filled the same. They're still equally as fluffy and comfortable.
Good. Well, I'll put that to the test.
I know you will.
But I always welcome people to look over my gear. Even if they're a rookie, they might pick something up and say, why do you carry this? What's this for? And if I don't have a good reason, then maybe I shouldn't be carrying it. Just fresh eyes looking at my stuff all the time. I'll take that.
So definitely what we're going to do is I'm going to have you back on here probably multiple times.
I'd be thrilled.
Because I think there's so much that you bring to the table in terms of education. And I know from doing this again enough and being in this industry enough, there is a lot of education out there, but people like what actually matters in reality. There's so many YouTubers out there. There's so many people that focus on growing their channels and growing their platforms by getting the clickbaity stuff and the eye-catchy stuff. You're somebody that's out there that's so real and authentic and grinding on the trail day after day after day. The type of advice and the value that you bring really is invaluable. So what I'd like to do is have you back on. We actually break down some of your trips, talk about what you brought. I would love to get a more in-depth breakdown on the Baja Divide Trail because I think, again, that's super interesting, especially being that you're, as far as you know, the only person that has thru-hiked it to this day, which I think, again, is absolutely gold. People are going to really want to hear about that. So we'll definitely do that. We'll get that scheduled for some point this year.
Love to.
And then we got to do at least one trip together.
I would love that. And so...
But
what? Get your shoes on. Let's go. There's no buts.
We're going a total of 50 yards.
Wow.
No,
let me sort through my gear and see what I got to do that far.
Here's what we're going to do.
Is there a water source?
We're going to go on a weekend trip.
Yeah.
I will let you pick the place and how many miles we're going to do up to. What do you think I got at me, Tom? Like 30 miles?
I picked the hike already.
Listen, I've had 3 hip reconstructions. And have been diagnosed with Crohn's. So it's affected a lot in terms of joints and mobility and things like that.
So there's some challenges to
overcome.
overcome.
I'm going to hire you as my personal hiker trainer to get me in shape.
Excellent.
And then we're going to go do some crazy trip.
Good. We're going to start with a hike that I've already got planned out. It's a little more 50 yards. But the Foothills Trail in South Carolina that I was telling you about, 77 miles. We could do that in a week. Bring some gear. Tom, come along. It can be great.
There's going to be a whole montage of me training like Rocky for this trip.
The background music, you running
to do 77.
Come on, man! Over a week, that'll be nice, easy, and it doesn't seem it seems infinitely doable. So you could
that's
do that.
like 10 miles a day. That's like 11 miles a day. That's crazy.
I walk 10 miles a day every day to and from work.
Yeah, that's just because you're
weird.
Well, I wasn't gonna say, but
I'll say it for you. I'll say it for you.
Me and Devin talked on the last episode. I am more considered a weekend warrior, and I had an issue with that because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm the warrior. I feel like the thru-hikers are the warriors, and the weekend campers are more of like the lazy ones in the group. How we got the title of warrior, I don't know, but
I used to describe it as sort of like 3 separate categories of hiker. There's your day hikers. They're just out and they stink like soap. And they wear cotton and they pop their collars up and they're just in the parks. Then there's the section hiker. Like Tom goes out, and these are the smartest hikers because they have jobs and they pick the right gear that they need for the section that they're doing. And that, market-wise, must be like the biggest segment. Weekend people, week-long people, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the fringe, the dirty hiker trash.
This is actually the cleanest I've ever seen you, to be honest.
Barely employed, always focused on getting back out on the trail, and I think that's the category I fall into.
This is the first time I haven't seen moss growing out of your beard.
I've been stank nasty a few times. It's gotten pretty bad, but
that's funny.
Yeah. It's part of the
we're definitely gonna have you back on. We're gonna do more together.
I'd love that,
as it should be, because I feel like you have been such a huge supporter of ours over the years, and have really been one of the people that we rely on for the the longer reviews of our product that says, hey, look, like you said, I put 4,000 miles on this thing, and it's only failing because of the fabric itself literally just can't keep up anymore. Like it's just.
And I burned part of it, and I tore part of it, and it got pretty beat up.
Yeah, but that's awesome. Yeah. I need you to bring that in so I can.
I chucked it, except for the little. I can't hang on to material possessions.
But you could bring it to me, and then I can hang it up on like the memorabilia wall and be like, this thing's got 4,000 miles on it. It was beat to hell.
I'll put 4,000 on my new one, and then you can check that out.
Can you get it done by like next weekend? Or?
A challenge? I brought Tom the sleeping bag, the one before this one, because it was pretty beat up. And you remember the down, it gotten stuffed into the different baffles, and he fixed it right up for me, and he seemed fascinated by the wear and tear in certain areas and stuff. So, I'd be glad to do that. And I'm proud to be associated with a great Michigan company like Underground Quilts, and I'm glad to be your friend.
UGQ Outdoor.
UGQ Outdoor. Check them out.
Cool, man. We'll definitely do it. We'll get a trip together. Probably some more gear your way, I'm sure, as you need it.
Glad for it.
And
thank you.
As always, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you.
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah. All right, thumbnail. Look and smile. Wait, hold your hand up here.